The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
The UAB Director's Chair. I'm Tony Kurre. He's Mark Ingram. He is the athletic director for your UAB Blazers. We do this show every single week. You can hear at least 5 times on the TKR app, Tony Kurre Radio. For some reason, Mark, we got like over 100 downloads yesterday, just on a weird Wednesday, which is great. People are finding us. Word of mouth is fantastic. And of course, if you missed anything, we play on TKR, which is free and runs 24 hours a day. We do classic rock. We have 14 different shows, including the UAB Director's Chair. You can listen to it on the TKR Podcast Network, wherever you get your favorite podcast. First of all, how you doing, my friend? Everything good?
I'm so good, Tony. I hope you are.
You are good, man. Today, we're also beginning some classic rock news. More so, and I'm assuming you came up with the idea. Every week we do a little something off the page here about classic rock, which would be our favorite front runners, or would it be our favorite super groups, or our favorite guitar players. This time, you were doing sappy ballads. I said, let's go and take another step and do our 4 guilty pleasure songs. These are 4 songs that if I heard you at a stoplight blaring this song down in Southside, I'd go, what in the world is he listening to? It would shock me, but you just be singing away with it, baby.
Yeah, These are the songs that, exactly, you get up next to me in my car and you see me singing at the top of my lungs with veins bulging out of my neck. It's probably one of these songs. And I was so excited in the other weeks when we'd have honorable mention category. I'd be so excited to have all these extras that I couldn't decide. This week I'm more embarrassed that I have so many.
Well, and hopefully we don't have any of the same songs in our 4. This is one thing where I hope I don't have your songs and you hope I don't have yours.
Well, and we should begin. I need to begin with an extreme apology. Okay. I really need to apologize. Last week we talked about great songs at UAB games or at sporting events. And how on earth you and I both omitted this one is really upsetting to me. I've got to get this off my chest. I'd like to apologize to all Blazer fans, sports fans, and Journey fans for not including the song "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey.
Yes.
How on earth did we not talk about that? I don't know. But anybody that hates Journey, loves Journey, hates sports, loves sports, listen, I'm sorry. They should have been in there.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I'm actually going to be doing a show tomorrow on, they just recently had, of course, the Library of Congress list of songs that were inducted into the Library of Congress. It's bigger than being actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned. But I've got 10 songs that I think that should be inducted into the library. And they're just songs that, and Boston's More Than a Feeling is one of them. Boston, when the lights go out and Armageddon happens and Jesus comes back for the second coming, we'll have roaches, we'll have rats, and that song will still be playing on the radio. That song will still be, and I've heard it a trillion times, but I mean, that song just transcends all music. It is like, if you want to learn classic rock, it was so far ahead of its time. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. This is the UAB Director's Chair. He's Mark Ingram. I'm Tony Kurre. Let's talk about UAB sports. Give us a roundabout what's going on with everything in athletic departments and all your favorite teams.
We're wrapping it up, man. We're wrapping up the spring here, and summer camps will start soon. We've had commencement. Our baseball team is still playing. They've got their last home series this weekend, and so they've got to have a good weekend to make the tournament. It's not impossible. We're not out of it by any means, but need to have a good weekend this weekend. But otherwise, we've wrapped up the spring season and have done so really, really well. And so camps begin right at the end of May, 1st of June for all of our teams. Summer camps for high school kids and younger, and then we take vacation, if you can believe that. It's sort of the early part of July, end of June, early part of July is really the only time all year where people feel like they could take an actual vacation. But we spend all summer, and we've really already started doing a lot of planning for next season. So not just the teams, but our administrative units. And we talk about, what is a football game going to look like in the fall, or, whether it's, just not to be redundant, but whether it's music or fireworks or light shows, or what can we do? What about concessions? Is there anything, what can we do to continue to try to get a little bit better? and better experience for our fans and better experience for our student athletes. So that's what we spend our summer doing.
All right. And obviously with football season, and we're talking about that already, Trent Dilfer's first year, of course, a lot of people, I think it was the hire of the year in college football, period. How's things looking with him? Where are we at with college football right now? Dead period? What's going on?
Yeah, no. So the transfer portal closed a little more than a week ago, and what that means is that you can't when you hear that term, the portal closed, it means you as a player cannot get into the portal. But anyone who's already in the portal, they can come out anytime. So, right, so you can be recruited out of the portal. It just means that as a coach, okay, I'm not going to lose any more of my roster to the transfer portal. That's kind of the key. And then as a coach, if you're sort of recruiting the portal, which we all now have to do, it helps okay, this is what's out there. There's not going to be any more players entering the portal. So in terms of being organized, if you're still trying to find another whatever, linebacker, running back, quarterback, whatever it might be, what's in the portal's in the portal. You got that. You got junior college players. You got high school players. That's what's available to you to add to your roster, and it's not going to grow from there. So, but things are going really well. We have not lost very many players to the portal that we had hoped to keep, and so we I think every roster in the modern era loses players who aren't playing as much as they'd like, and that's okay. And that's the beauty of the portal is people who want more playing time than they're getting. They seek a different home because they just want to get on the field, Now, some people are getting into the portal because they know that they could go get paid by some other school, get bought by their pay for play collective. And so they do that. And that doesn't happen as often as the other. More frequently, it's really just about a young man or young woman wanting to get on the field more than they're currently getting on the field. And so they get into the transfer portal. And so it's just kind of a new way of recruiting. You now have to have a person dedicated on your staff to just watching the portal, if not multiple people. So it's a really unique twist to recruiting that we didn't used to have to deal with, but now you're managing your own roster and you're managing what's in the portal and trying to keep your own kids from being recruited away from you because other schools are reaching out to them through some third party and sometimes just straight to them.
Yeah.
Hey, if you were here, we could pay you this much and you could start for us.
He's Mark Ingram, the athletic director for the UAB Blazers. A lot to get to today. We'll get your emails, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, where you do read every one of them. We try to read them too. When you're talking about a big name coach, and everyone knew who Trent Dilfer was, and I love the fact that he was actually on ESPN for a period of time because there's not a lot of college football fans that don't know who Trent Dilfer is, and of course the Super Bowl winning quarterback as well. When you're talking about like a Deion Sanders going to a Jackson State or a Hugh Freeze going to a smaller school like Liberty, or even in basketball, Rick Pitino taking over Iona and now moving on, what does that typically do? I think we talked last week about getting JUCO kids in, and now with the transfer portal, it's a lot different, probably easier to bring those kids in. Do you certainly see a flutter of activity that first or second year, and then does it kind of calm down a little bit? How does that normally work?
Oh, there's a huge amount of interest, and it definitely elevates kind of the perception of your program, how your program is seen by the outside. It completely elevates who you are, and we've seen that here and did so immediately in terms of interest from national media and just chatter about UAB. There was more impressions, like I want to say that it was like 8 times more impressions nationally than we've ever had for any other singular event. And when you think about, we've had some really interesting and popular events in terms of, eliminating and reinstating football and all that kind of thing. So that's a huge deal, and it really has a lot to do with who we hired as our coach.
All right, before we get into our guilty pleasure songs, we got to get some emails here. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Tim in Hopeful said he loves the show, a big UAB Blazer fan, said he heard you talking about expansion of March Madness, love to see it double, and I think a lot of us feel the same way. There's no reason, just from a percentage standpoint, keeps a lot more teams in the hunt for a national title. And I don't know what that would do for, like, say, the NIT or the CBI, but who really cares if we could double that up? He wants to know, what kind of leverage does an athletic director at a UAB have in that kind of talk? Can you pick up the phone and call someone with the NCAA? How does that work?
Yeah, well, you say, do we have leverage? Not enough.
Yeah.
Is unfortunately the answer. But there's a committee. There's a basketball tournament committee. There are a number of athletic directors on that committee, and it's about getting that committee to believe in that idea first. If the tournament committee believes in it and votes in favor of it, then it would likely happen. I don't know why. Well, I guess I probably do know why, but it's just unfortunate that it hasn't happened already. But what you have is, there are some people who are in the tournament more frequently than others, right? Your commonly blue blood type programs. They want to keep us out because they know that they would lose to us if they played us, or could lose to us. So they will come up with all sorts of reasons why it's just not financially viable, or they'll say, "Ooh, that's too many games on the players," which is complete BS. If you were in the I want you to think about this. If the field is 64, plus you have the 4 play-ins up in Dayton, so that's what makes it 68. But the field is 64. I'm talking about doubling that field to 128. That's only one more game, which is the same as the 4 who come into the play-in game at Dayton.
Yeah.
Right? So theoretically, if a team out of Dayton made it all the way to the championship, they would play the exact same number of games as you would have in an expanded group from 64 to 128. So I'm saying, eliminate the 4 in Dayton. Let all teams play in a tournament. Don't give anybody a bye. So that'll be the next thing, is there'll be some expansion. But those of us blue bloods with a logo that have always been historically in the tournament, we don't have to be challenged in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that look to that. But look, if we could get any expansion, regardless of the circumstance, any expansion would be good at this point, to make it more realistic, to make it more entertaining for the players and their experience and the fans. So, when you say pick up the phone, it's about picking up the phone and calling a member of the committee, the tournament committee, and trying to understand what the challenges are, talk through those challenges and say, hey, well, here's my thought. And slowly but surely, it's like politics. You're trying to turn the battleship.
Yeah, Mark Ingram joins us here, and I'm just getting some breaking news here, so I'm going to throw you something a little different before we actually get into some more emails. info@TonyCurryRadio.net here in the UAB Director's Chair. The ACC just wrapped up their spring meetings yesterday. Commissioner Jim Phillips said all of his league's members are committed to each other emphatically. His comments came in the wake of multiple reports, including from The Athletic, that 7 ACC members had examined the league's grant of rights in determining whether it could be challenged in court, which would then pave the way for more to leave the ACC before its media rights deal expires in 2036. Where do you see, and of course you're talking to an athletic director here that obviously his entire athletic program is moving into the AAC next year, which I think is fantastic. It's certainly more competitive, but what are your thoughts on realignment? Do you think we've seen the end?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. Listen, Jim Phillips and I used to work together 25 years ago. I've known Jim and Laura and their kids that long. He's a terrific guy who's really smart and incredibly well respected. But he's hoping that he's right. But then there's a sort of an unnamed president and an unnamed AD that came out of those meetings and said, well, we're unified until the SEC makes us an offer we can't refuse. But their grant of rights discussion, I want to say that it cost like $50 million or something to get out of the ACC. So as a university, you got to start asking yourself, is it worth $50 million of institutional funds to pay a league that we're no longer in, to get into a league that we'd rather be associated with? That's big. I mean, that is a big number. our exit fees coming out of Conference USA is that we did not receive a distribution for 2 years, which is just shy of $2 million a year. So right at $4 million is what we did not receive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big number for us. If somebody, if we were in the ACC and they said, hey, you got to pay 50 or 60 million to get out. Woo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a big number. And, we all everybody relies on donors to make the university go.
Yeah.
We don't get, while our states are, if you are a state institution, if you're private, you're getting nothing, right?
Yeah.
But if you are a state institution, you're appreciative of what you're getting from your state, but it's not enough to fund the entire operation. So you're relying on your state, you're relying on all these donors and people to help you. And to look back at them and say, hey, look, we're going to spend $55 million on a league we're no longer in. That is a tough sell.
That is no doubt.
It's just really tough, really hard.
1985, we'll get into the classic rock real quick. Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits had a song called Money for Nothing. Of course, you remember it was on MTV and everything. And in that particular song, he drops this F word, not the F word, but another F word. And this is 1985, so this is, 38 years ago. And I remember being played on all FM stations. I mean, it's a derogatory term towards homosexuals.
Yeah.
And I heard it the other day, and now whenever you hear it on any radio station, they cut that word out. It's just hard to believe how far we've come from a politically correctness and maybe a moralistic one as well, that we don't use that term. Bobby Huggins had no problem saying that term a couple of weeks ago on a Cincinnati radio station. Of course, he is the head coach at West Virginia for the Mountaineers. The UAB Blazers have played them the last couple of years, and he's been given a small suspension for what he said, and of course, it was in relation to Xavier Musketeer fans, which I know Bobby. I used to interview Bobby when I lived in Cincinnati. I know what kind of coach he is. He's a Hall of Famer. But what were your thoughts on how West Virginia handled that?
Well, I get into this concern, Tony, sometimes with myself in that I'm going to get too comfortable in the moment. And, when you and I are talking, we've known each other a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to get too comfortable and be a little too free with my conversation? Am I going to say too much? Or sometimes you're speaking publicly, like at a Rotary Club thing or something, and you're trying to be, I don't want to say comedic, but entertaining. They say, hey, look, you got 30 minutes at the podium, 30 minutes at the podium to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so you do want to provide some interest. And I read what he said. I didn't hear the interview. But, sometimes you say things, it may not be quite that derogatory, but you could say any number of things and it comes out of your mouth, and it's like you can see the words coming out and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did I just say that? Could I grab those and put them back in? And unfortunately you can't, right? So I guess I'll say that I appreciate that first of all, his apology was quick. I thought it was well written and sincere. I thought all those things. I'm not saying that makes up for everybody's hurt feelings, but I thought at least that was the right thing to do immediately that day.
Yeah.
And I'm not there, so I don't want to speak to how they handled it because I don't know what else in terms of apologies he may have issued to people around their campus community and so forth, which I think is important. But I do think it's important also, whether it's related to this issue or anything else, I do think we have to get to a point in our world where we're willing to forgive people for making a mistake.
Yeah.
If a person makes a mistake and they say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, that was terrible, are we permitted to forgive them, or are we totally going cancel culture? Now you can't have a job. We're going to fire you from your job and you can't work anymore because you said that thing that you shouldn't have said. And so I only point that out as something that should be considered. And
I think it's not. We need to realize that this is a situation by situation, and I'm saying this because people know Bobby Knight. And people know Mike Leach, or they did. People know Charles Barkley. Those guys are notorious for saying things that may be a little off color, make you feel a little uncomfortable, but their fan base love them for it. And Bobby Huggins is one of those guys. And I can't help but think one of the reasons Hugh Freeze got fired was because he used to quote scripture on his Twitter account. And then we found out that he was calling 900 services. It was a total 180.
Yeah.
But if you're a guy that is in that arena and you kind of know who he is and what he normally says, and I mean, I'll use an example. Donald Trump. Donald Trump could say whatever the hell he wants because we've heard it all. It doesn't surprise us anymore. And he doesn't get disciplined like someone else might because we knew who he is and what he stands for. And I think Bobby Huggins, I think this may have worked in his advantage because I could see any other coach getting fired for this or certainly getting a half-year suspension. And for Bobby, I think it was a slap on the wrist.
Well, it's an expensive slap on the wrist because they're docking his pay by, I think, $1 million or something. And that's pretty heavy. I mean, to act like that's not a big deal, I think is wrong. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to forgive or make it seem like it's okay that he said what he said. I just think that it is important that we consider giving people an opportunity to say that they're sorry. We had a president, you mentioned Donald Trump. We had another president who had an affair in the Oval Office.
Yes.
Not only did he keep the job, he admitted it live on television. He apologized publicly. He was reelected.
But we already kind of knew that he was a womanizer. I mean, it didn't really surprise a lot of people that were close to Bill Clinton that he did what he did.
But I'm saying that, so it'd be interesting though. Would you be permitted to apologize for that today?
Yeah.
At one point you could apologize for things and say, hey, look, I'm sorry. It was wrong. I'm wrong and I'm going to be punished. But do you have to lose your job and not be permitted to have a job ever again? Because if you lose your job over that, you're not going to have a job.
That's true.
You're going to become unhireable.
Yeah.
And so at least I thought his apology was, like I said, quick and appropriate. I'm certainly not in a position and won't judge whether it was enough or too much or any of those things. Like I said, it's easy to fall into a trap and answer a question emotionally and then go, oh my God, what did I just do? Yeah. Oh my goodness sakes, and I suspect that's a little bit of what happened.
We were going to get into the John Morant thing, and I think we could probably do an entire show on it, and that is a gun handling, the gun culture that we now live in the United States. We'll get into that next week. That's a good email we'll talk about because I do think that things trickle down. They do certainly go into college, and John Morant being a 22-year-old, he's certainly just out of college as well. So we'll get into that next week. But I do want to get into these songs because I know it normally takes a lot longer than it normally does because you always having somebody flipping honorable mentions.
Sorry.
But we're getting into our 4 guilty pleasure songs. These are songs that if you saw Mark Ingram sitting in his Mercedes down there at the traffic light at Richard Arrington Drive, and you'd be going, what in the world is he listening to? And you just be bellowing it out and singing it out. These are our guilty pleasure songs. We're going to do 4 of them. Give me a couple of your honorable mentions. I only have one honorable mention, and I'm going to get to my 4. But what do you got?
Well, I told you I'm embarrassed to tell you I have 5 honorable mentions. But I'll try not to spend too much time. I love Lionel Richie and the Commodores, and I love the song Easy. Mm-hmm. By the Commodores, and it's a little more mellow, than a lot of my favorite songs. But Easy Like Sunday Morning, man. Mm-hmm. That's one of them. This is a little bit more modern, not a little bit, a lot more modern than we usually talk about. Which is, I love the modern singer Pink. I think she's super talented. I love that she's edgy and kind of points out that she doesn't care. And she's got this song called Get This Party Started. Yep. And I think it's a great kind of crank you up and get excited type song. And it's about getting ready to go out on a Friday night. And it kind of takes me back to those feelings of college, like, hey, let's go out to the scene and what's happening out there. And I'm a Pink fan. Okay. And I love Rupert Holmes' Escape. That's the song that people refer to as the Pina Colada song.
Yeah.
If you like pina coladas getting caught in the rain, I'm going to belt that out. Yeah. I'm just telling you, I'm going to belt that song out.
Okay.
And most people don't have any idea who sang that. And it's been remade by a lot of people. Jack Johnson has a terrific version of that song. And I love Jack. Okay, so here you go. These are the 2 more guilty pleasures. This is a kind of a mark of my childhood, one of the greatest movies of all time. And this was the theme song from the movie The Karate Kid. which is Peter Cetera, great voice. The Glory
of Love. I love that song, man. That's a great song. I don't even consider that. I don't even consider that a guilty pleasure, to be honest with you, because it is Peter Cetera. He's from Chicago. Chicago's a classic rock band. But I will admit that whenever I hear that song, I do crank it up. That is a great song. That's a great song.
And it's a great one. He's got an awesome voice, and you're gonna belt that one out. Think about Elizabeth Shue, that little cutie, that movie, and what an awesome movie. And just again, it just takes me right back to the moment when I saw it in the theater and Ralph Macchio, the whole deal. Okay. Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Sorry. I have no excuse for myself.
Yeah. No, that's
my honorable mention list. I'd like to move on.
Okay. I only have a couple. And again, I could have 150. Anything from James Taylor, Bread, Ambrosia. I could go on and on and on. There were two songs, though, that I think a lot of people would surprise. One I actually just absolutely fell in love with, and it's from Kirk Franklin, called "I Need You to Survive." It is a gospel song. I pray for you, you pray for me. Whenever I hear that song, and I don't listen to gospel radio very often, so I don't hear that song very often, but it's just a great song. Another one from Charles O'Keefe, "Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues." I love that song. That's one of those songs where if it shows up on Sirius XM or something, I'll listen to it 30 times because I don't know when I'm going to hear it again. But I absolutely love that song. Those are just my two honorable mentions. I'm going to get into my first one here, and then I'll let you get into yours. So about 15, 16, 17 years ago, Barry Manilow played the BJCC Concert Hall.
He's awesome.
I was still doing classic rock. I was still doing Get the Let Out. I was bringing the damn Yankees on stage. I was doing the Leonard Skinner thing. I was at the Yes. I was doing it all. And I showed up at that concert, and you would not believe, first of all, how many people were like, "What in the hell are you doing here?" And I was like, if you're asking me, what the hell are you doing here? But I like to enjoy everything at least once in my life. I want to know what's the big deal about Barry Manilow in concert. It was a great show. He has a song called "I Made It Through the Rain," and I remember listening to it when I was a teenager, and I just thought it's got a piano right at the beginning that's really, really small and slow and methodical, and I loved it. And then when I was down in Guatemala adopting my second son, we were looking for some type of toy to bring back to the hotel, so we'd have something to look for. And we stopped at this Dollar General in Guatemala. I don't know what it was, and that song came on, dun 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 dun, and I just fell to the floor on my knees. And so from that point on, I've always loved that song. It just brings back a lot of memories for me. So that's my first guilty pleasure, Barry Manilow's "I Made It Through the Rain." Go ahead.
Well, I got to tell you. So you said Barry Manilow. One of my computer passwords used to be Manilow. Okay, so I'm with you, and that's obviously not where I thought you were going to go. I thought you were going to go Copacabana, which would be a great.
"It's a Miracle" is another great song too. I love that song.
Yeah, another guilty pleasure song. Okay, I'm going to start my top four. I'm going to start this with a reverse direction, couples only skate, to Air Supply, "All Out of Love."
Oh, wow. Really?
How about that one? Don't act like you're not going to sing that loud, Tony. Air Supply has every sappy love song that's ever been written in the history of man.
Yeah, that's true.
"All Out of Love," and I'm going to roller skate with Becky in reverse direction. Me and Becky are going to, and I'm going to stumble and probably fall and knock my two front teeth out, trying to sing loud and hold her sweaty.
See, that's one band that never got cool though. Like Christopher Cross.
No, they weren't cool.
That's
what makes it guilty.
Well, I know that's what makes it so good, because I could go to Ride Like the Wind from Christopher Cross.
Yes.
But Christopher Cross actually did like the theme song to Arthur, and that was actually kind of cool. It was a funny movie. So once he did that theme song to Arthur, he was no longer uncool anymore. But Air Supply, that is spot on. That is what I'm talking about, because Air Supply was never cool, ever. They never had a song. Even the Bee Gees were cool at one point, but that was never cool. That's a great one. All right. I think one of the greatest songs, and when we did our best singers, I think she got an honorable mention. I'm going Karen Carpenter, the Carpenters with Yesterday Once More.
Beautiful.
Every sha-la-la-la, every whoa. Man, when I hear that song, I was in the carpool, what was it, last week with the kids, and that song came on, and I said, everyone's got to shut up for 15 minutes because I'm going to listen to this thing about 3 or 4 times in a row.
Yeah, nobody told.
My daughter thought I was an absolute idiot. She's like, what are you listening to? And I was like, this is a song from the Carpenters from the 70s, and this is a great song. It's about a radio station. It's about a guy playing those yesterday songs that you remember that make you feel good. That is the guilty pleasure song, period, for every guilty song out there. So I'm going to Carpenters Yesterday Once More. What else you got?
That's solid.
Yeah,
That's solid.
Thank you.
All right, just a little bit more modern. Great singer, hasn't produced any music in a long time. Celine Dion, it's all coming back to me now.
Oh,
Baby, 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 if you kiss me like that. You got to sing that one loud and strong from the chest. You got to get into your lungs. You got to fill it up, and you got to get that out.
I was never a Celine Dion person. And
she's terrific.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, whether you like her or not. And I kind of started getting into her music a little bit when she lost her husband because they had such a wonderful, loving relationship. They worked together. Yeah. And I'm gonna give you a guilty moment here. I never liked that Titanic song until about 12 years after it came out. And then it is
wherever you are.
No, it's fantastic. It's I mean, when you listen to it 12 years after it came out, people are like, "You just finally getting this?" I'm like, "That's a great song." Really
I had a basketball coach whose name will stay with me, who used to just belt that song out, that Titanic song. He would just, like, in the middle of a meeting, start singing that song at the top as long as it was hilarious.
No, she can get after it. I'm going to go with another woman. It's the reason why these are all women's songs. This is kind of weird. This song, I just recently found out that was actually written by the Bee Gees. They had a chance to record it first, but this young lady named Dionne Warwick said, I want that song, but I'd love it if you guys would sing background on it. It's the title track to her Heartbreaker album. It's called Heartbreaker from Dionne Warwick. I love that song. I hadn't heard it probably in about 25 or 30 years. I heard it for the first time about a year ago, and I was like, this was a great song. And I think it may have been like maybe it was one of her only number one hits, period. It's a great song, and you never hear it. You never hear it on the radio, so when you hear it, man, enjoy it. But I'm going to go Heartbreaker, Dionne Warwick.
I love Dionne Warwick. That's a great pick.
I'll pull off it. And you mentioned Whitney Houston. I mean, that was her aunt, right?
Yes, that's right. And as soon as you said it, you know what? I immediately thought of that show, Solid Gold. Remember that? Back in the disco era, that show, Solid Gold.
Yeah.
People with the tight pants, like the gold pants, dancing around. They had headbands and stuff on.
No,
and we thought that was cool. Everybody thought that was cool.
It was cool for the time. It was kind of cool. All right, what's your next one?
Bonnie Tyler.
Oh, no.
Total Eclipse of the
Heart.
Dude. Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. Yeah, I need you more tonight. I need you more than ever. Are you kidding? You gotta love that song. Total Eclipse of the Heart, man.
I will tell you this. That is so funny you say that. So do you remember the cover of that album? Do you remember what she was wearing?
No, I do not.
All right. If you just pull up a picture of Bonnie Tyler, she had this country girl look. If she had like a piece of straw in her teeth, you would have thought she was a farm girl. She had this flannel looking shirt, and it was buttoned down around the belly button. And that picture on my first K-Tel album called Dynamite. I'll never forget. We used to have these things called K-Tel albums, and it would be like 12 or 13 different artists, all from the same label, and they'd put one of their hits on an album, and it was called a K-Tel album. And I mean, you were getting like 12 or 13 hits of the same album, and you ordered it through the mail, and it was like $6.99. It took 7 weeks. 7 weeks to get your album.
All the songs were old by the time you got them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I bought that album because I was a young fledgling little man. I was about 15 or 16 years old, and I bought that album just because of that picture of Bonnie Tyler. You're talking to a guy who his dad ripped his Farrah Fawcett poster down in his bedroom. It broke my heart. I was like, really, Dad? And he's like, you're not having that trash in this house. So I got that K-Tel album as a kind of a resentment kind of thing towards my old man, because there was a picture of Bonnie Tyler with that it was tied up right below the you-know-whats, and I was like that. But I don't like that song. That was one song I didn't like, but no. And I still have that album, as a matter of fact.
I'm going to have to question our friendship.
Yeah, okay. My final song, and I'm going to get kind of sappy here. It's probably a song. I'm a Catholic. If you go to church, you may have heard this song. But I was at Easter Mass about 5 years ago, and I was sitting next to a woman who, if she wasn't 90, she wasn't 110. She was frail. She had an oxygen tank next to her. She couldn't have weighed but 35 pounds. And when it comes in Catholic churches, we kneel twice for a period of time. And most lazy people put their knees on the kneeler and then they put their butt on the seat behind us,
right.
And that bothers me. Now, if you got bad knees or a bad back, I get it, right? But people are just lazy, and I'm thinking, look what Jesus did for us. For the gosh sakes, for 5 minutes you can get on your knees. This old lady got on her knees with an oxygen tank.
Here we go.
She was like 93 years old, and I'm thinking, and then they played the song "The Bread of Life," and in the song, and He will raise you up, He will raise you up, He will raise you up. And this woman sang louder than anybody at our church, and I'll never forget it. It made me tear up. It made me get on my knees, and now whenever I hear that song, I totally lose it. I can't. And listen, sometimes it's a communion song in our church. When that song comes on at communion, I can barely take communion. I'm not kidding you. And my son looks at me. He knows I love that song. My son looks at me and he starts laughing because he knows I am going to lose it every time I hear a song. So, but I can't even. You have any song that you can't even sing because you get so choked up? Like, I want to sing that song every time it comes on, but I can't get through it. I can't. My voice is cracking, and so I just have to listen to it and just bawl. But what a wonderful feeling. So that's
a beautiful song. Yeah,
it's a great song. That's my.
I know that
guilty.
Song well.
Yeah.
We're Catholic, and
I've love that song.
We've sang that many times. You're right. It is one that that everybody in church seems to get behind. More and knows a little bit more than other songs. So that's a great pick, actually.
Thank you.
But very different than mine. And so this next one, though, you're talking church. I'll just tell you, this is God, Country, America, Apple Pie. If you don't love this, I'll never speak to you again. Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream. Boom! I just dropped that on you.
No, I'm with you.
That is what we are. Nowhere in between. How can we be wrong? Sail away with me, Tony, to another world, and we'll rely on each other. I
thought you were going with Hard Candy Christmas.
No, you spoiled the number one Christmas song. We're going to do that when we get to the holiday times. We'll do our holiday songs. That's the best. That Hard Candy Christmas is the number one Christmas song in the history of the world.
I agree with you. It's great. And I'll be honest with you. I heard Coward of the County yesterday, and I was wailing in the car. I had heard that thing. I was like, that is a really good song. I was into some Kenny Rogers. I used to stuff newspapers with my dad on Saturday nights. He was a newspaper distributor, and when the song "Crazy" came out from Kenny Rogers, man, they used to play that on AM radio. My dad would listen to 700 WLW, and they used to actually play that song every night. When I'd hear that song, my dad would shut it off because he knew I loved that song, and he'd start laughing, then he'd turn it back on again. So yeah, anything Kenny Rogers. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I hear you.
Well, you talking about Kenny. You've got The Gambler, too, which is a solid song. And it's, when it comes on, I'm immediately singing that word for word. I love, you got to know when to hold them, man. Know when to hold them.
You don't need me. Yeah, man, we can go on and on and on. Great list, my friend. Fantastic. You get to pick next week. Let me know what we're going to be talking about. And again, tell people how they can find you.
I thought I picked this week.
All right, you want me to pick? All right, well, you picked, and then I kind of one-upped you, but that's okay. I'll have something for you. All right, so tell people how they can find you.
How they can find me?
Yeah, UABsports.com. You want me to do it for you?
You can find me at UABsports.com all day long.
And then the UAB_AD if you want to actually tweet to Mark Ingram. Do you actually reply to people? Do you read your Twitter account?
No, I don't. Listen, I've never shied away from a phone call, email, complaint of any sort. As the athletic director, you don't get a lot of compliments usually. So it's usually the other side. But I call people back. I'll write them back. I love talking to people about what they're upset about because I usually learn something, but so do they. So we kind of get to an understanding of what's going on. And And, but, my eyes can't be everywhere, nor can our staff's. And so things happen that you're not aware of. But I generally think that people who complain through Twitter are cowards.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't like it. I think it's a cowardly way to try to communicate with people. Just reach out, pick up the phone, man. Just call me or send me an email, and we'll visit. We can talk through whatever it is. But if you're too cowardly to do that, you can just have it.
You're a good man. We'll catch up next week.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.